I'm Fathery.
This is Dave.
This is Brian.
And this is Tex-Trek.
Engage.
Well, welcome back aboard the Starship Texas for the 91st installment of the Tex-Trek podcast, the home of Star Trek fandom from deep in the heart of Texas, where we talk all about Star Trek all the time. And today is a very special day that we've been waiting on for a long time. We're going to crack open a bottle of the Château Picard because
The bald man is back.
I like that. The bald man, the great man as he's called in this episode.
Yeah.
The great Baldy has returned.
The great bald of the galaxy.
That's what the TNG cast called Patrick Stewart. They called him Old Baldy, and then after he got knighted, they started calling him like Sir Baldy, I think.
Did they really?
Yeah.
That's kind of messed up.
It's like Michael Dorn and Marina Sirtis calling him that.
Once again, we can finally baldly go.
Yes. That, the joke that we've been hearing since 1987.
Yeah, but now is the right time if ever there was one.
Yes.
Yeah, so...
It's time to bring those jokes back.
Right.
This episode that we're going to be discussing, we're going to go full spoilers and just break it down scene by scene. So if you haven't watched it yet, you probably don't want to listen to this until you have checked it out, and then come back and find us. But we'll give you one little kind of non-spoilery just opening statement to give off our general thoughts on the episode Remembrance. We'll let Brian begin. Brian, how did you feel about this episode?
I loved it. I thought it was a perfectly executed example of what it was trying to be. So, and I really, I enjoyed it on all sorts of levels. It was superb.
Nice.
Dave, how about you?
I think I had gone from when this was being promoted and previewed. I went from being very enthused to thinking it's not going to live up to being much happier with it than I expected to be. It surprised me throughout by being a little different than I expected, and I didn't expect to have some of the emotional resonance it did. I think I will be able to dredge up some minor criticisms, but overall, I'm super excited about it. I really liked it. And you, Father?
Cool. And if anyone can hear a squeaking noise, it's because I'm preparing to uncork this bottle of Château Picard wine.
We're not gonna crash it across an Enterprise. Was it the
Enterprise B?
Enterprise B, yeah.
That wasn't Picard wine though. That would have been too big of a coincidence if it was. But my general feelings on this episode, I really liked it, and it is kind of what I was expecting, because I was expecting really good stuff, and that's what I got. Even though the premise did surprise me a little bit in ways that I enjoyed, because I like to be surprised. I don't want to know everything going in. Mm-hmm. I thought it was extremely cinematic, and it felt very modern in a good way. It
reminded me of some of the strengths of the Trek movies when they're rolling.
Why'd you stop talking?
Because I was like, you're tensed up and coiled with...
The wine is open!
Oh, yeah, now it's on.
Apologies for the awkward pause there. Some of the strengths of the movies.
Yeah, right. We all know that the movies don't always reflect the strengths of the show at times and some of the depth, but when they're good, they can be really good. Some of the weaker ones have really good parts.
I would say that even though this doesn't feel like TNG, it does feel exactly how I want it to feel, and that is an evolution of TNG. Much in the same ways that wines can mature over the years, I feel like the show is kind of a maturation from Star Trek Next Generation. Not that there's anything wrong with TNG, but this is just kind of like the next stage, kind of what the sequel to that should be, or just a sequel focused on Picard should be.
I don't think any of us would want them to try to recreate TNG.
Yeah, and they certainly don't.
They allow that this is a person who has aged, and they let him evolve.
I think this is as close as we could ever reasonably expect to get expect for getting a continuation of the Berman era. I mean, this is as close as it was ever going to be.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. And I think it is very well done.
It truly feels connected to that.
Yes. You can't help but constantly think of the Berman era while watching it, and yet it does feel fresh and new, and feels like it's moving and going and not just fan service.
Right.
And I'm passing out the wine now, so if we sound a little tipsier later in the podcast, you know why. Yeah. But I also feel that, like, Patrick Stewart is very possibly the best actor on weekly TV right now. And I feel like in this episode, the writing was also of a good enough quality to keep up with him. And the episode is very, like, writerly, but in a good way. I know sometimes it's used as a criticism. And I really like the approach that they're taking here. We're getting what's obviously and what they've stated is kind of a 10-chapter, 10-hour-long movie. But this first episode did what it needed to do, and it really got its hooks into me. I am so, no pun intended, engaged in what's going on. And I can already tell this is going to be a show where every week I'm looking forward to watching it, and then when I'm watching it, I'm dreading getting to that in-credit moment where the credits start. I'm like, oh no, I gotta wait a whole nother week, reset the clock. This is gonna be one of those types of shows.
Yeah, it's gonna be a little tough.
I have to admit, there was a part of me that was like, okay, it's over. I can finally start to process all of this and talk about it. And there's so much I want to say because I was watching it with other people. And
when I go into something and I have a little bit of nervousness about it, sometimes when it ends, there's also part of me that's like, whew, they made it through without dropping the ball.
Yes. There was, I've had this thought often when I watch Star Wars movies, but if you've got a franchise of some sort that is so big and so personal that it is basically effectively a religion to you, when you watch a big new chapter, that's like, oh, look, we found a fifth gospel.
Right.
And you're going to, if you're a Christian and they find a fifth gospel of the Bible, you're going to have a lot of mixed feelings when you sit down and read that. And what is that going to change and how restructure
some of this stuff I might have to turn into apocrypha.
And so, a lot of times I don't enjoy a Star Wars movie until the second viewing when I can set I've done all that. I've already made up my mind. Now I can go
You've gone through any stages of grief that you need to deal with.
But if it's good enough, it'll just grab me and pull me right in and I forget to worry about all of that stuff. This was good enough. I totally forgot that I was, having my whole world, my whole post-Berman era rewritten or restructured from what I might have imagined it to be. And I was very impressed with just the quality it takes to do that to someone like me at this point. So,
do we want to raise their glasses in salute?
Sure, we'll go ahead and cheers to the return of Picard and the 24th century.
Engaged, gentlemen.
Cheers.
So we're just gonna go ahead and kind of break down the entire episode scene by scene. The teleplay of Remembrance was by Akiva Goldsman and James Duff, based on a story by Akiva Goldsman and Michael Chabon and Kirsten Beyer and Alex Kurtzman and James Duff. That's like the union rules, I guess, way that they have to phrase that with all the ambersands.
Yeah.
And the episode was directed by Hanelle Culpepper. I just learned I've been saying her name wrong. She also directed some Discovery episodes.
Were we saying like Hanelle?
I always thought it was Hanelle Culpepper.
Yeah.
But it's Hanelle.
Okay.
And
that's like in Puff the Magic Dragon, but not. It's a land called Hanelle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, there's also a director called Hanelle.
Craziness.
And in this episode that she directed...
She got interviewed in the After Trek.
Yeah, and... no, it's called Ready Room now.
Yeah.
Yep.
But the episode begins with a really cool fan-servicey bit of the Enterprise D... Mm-hmm. With Picard and Data playing poker in 10 forward.
And blue skies, which I loved.
And actually, even before that, though, there's some kind of showy Trek space shots of like sort of nebulae and star fields and things like that, and a brief but very lovely, I assume all new rendering of the Galaxy class Enterprise D.
Yes,
yeah, it's a new CGI model. It's a little
coming
different,
into view. I was really excited to see that, and that got it off on a good foot with me. And then we have that scene that's right out of kind of classic, many iconic sequences from Trek, but especially the last scene in the show. And
it works as a good continuation from Star Trek Nemesis, a movie that I think has a lot of problems in it. I don't hate it as much as a lot of people do. I know some people really like Nemesis, but that movie, spoilers for Nemesis, it ends with basically Picard is the last person that Data sees before he sacrifices himself to save Picard and the rest of the ship. And we end on the music to Blue Skies, and with a hint at maybe a possible return for Data, but it's left kind of ambiguous.
Right, it's like it would have to be through sort of the mechanism of B4.
Yeah, and we'll talk about B4 in a later. Data's inferior android brother. Yeah. But the transition of going from Nemesis to this episode, Remembrance, worked so well. I was actually rewatching a lot of TNG stuff in preparation for Star Trek Picard, and the last thing I watched, literally right before I hit play on Remembrance, Wednesday night, was Star Trek Nemesis. So the last thing I heard was that...
You had no knowledge it was going to link up so closely and like use the musical theme of Blue Skies and all that.
Yeah. By Denise Crosby's grandfather.
Yes.
So another Trek connection.
Nice.
We'll talk about this, I'm sure, more as we go through the episode, but... everybody knows that like Nemesis was in some ways evoking Star Trek 2 with that sacrifice, and it's hard to, not say, well, nothing is going to live up to Star Trek 2. What I thought was interesting about this episode was, whatever your feelings on Nemesis, and I'm also a person who generally likes a lot of it, it kind of deepened and it gave it like nuance and weight.
Yes.
So that...
I agree.
Yeah,
what made Nemesis better.
Yeah, what may not have like really had all that much weight in Nemesis really does when you see how it's affected Picard and stuff like that.
And that's going to be a recurring theme, I think, discussing this episode, because it goes back to previous continuity, just like Michael Chabon promised they would do. I'm so glad to see this promise realized. But he said that he wanted to use the existing canon, and they're pulling on the strings, on the loose ends that were there. Not just with Nemesis, but with some other stuff as well.
Well, it's interesting to, like, what I like is that it's not pure fan service, it actually does deepen something, so that it's, it feels like meaningful canonical references.
I never really felt the weight of Data's death in Nemesis. It was so sloppily done that I was kind of like, all right, so when's Data coming back? Oh, he's actually dead. Oh, the movie's over. Okay, he's not coming back. He's actually dead. Right. All right, I figured that was just a fake out because it was so poorly done. Yeah. Here, I actually finally get Data's death. Right. I finally feel it. Data's dead. In some ways, he never really was until I watched this episode.
I think let's do the deep dive on that when Dahj, is it? Goes to Dahj, goes to visit him. But in the meantime, there's a poker game to discuss.
Yes. So not only are they on the 10 forward set, which looks a little different than it did on TNG, but it's a dream, so things should look a little different. I didn't check
the windows. Do they actually go to 10 forward, or I thought it was a little bit off to the port?
It's the wrong window.
So it's not 10 forward. It's some other area. It doesn't have to look like the same set.
True. But they have the same, little tea glass. It's like that TNG glass.
Yeah.
That Picard's drinking tea out of.
Like, it was probably supposed to be 10 forward.
And
they went to different windows. I think that was supposed to explain why the set didn't look
I think
identical.
it was an accident.
I will say, I never
thought
of them as... They didn't play poker in 10 forward, did they?
No.
They always felt like they were in a private room.
They went to someone's quarters.
Yeah.
Okay.
They would play games in 10 forward, though. We've seen other games being played.
But this was obviously never something that happened. It's like that weird thing you do in dreams. There's just kind of an amalgam of all these different memories and thoughts.
Yeah.
Data's in his Nemesis uniform that he never wore on the Enterprise D. Picard... I like when dream sequences are treated kind of like surreal. Like Picard's offering him honey milk and sugar, like things that like Data didn't eat or drink because he didn't eat or drink.
But would be very Picard-y to offer, and so in a dream it could make sense.
And then after offering, he doesn't actually give Data an ET; he just drinks it himself.
Yeah, because he was stalling because he doesn't want the game to end, and that ties into Picard says later in the episode that he doesn't like waking up from these dreams. Like he feels more alive here than in his actual day-to-day life.
Right.
But there's also some cool dialogue here about, and it sounded so much like something that Michael Piller would have randomly stuck in an episode of TNG to give it like those little character moments, the Piller filler, but with Picard playing poker with Data and telling him, you have a tell.
Yeah.
And the way that they worked that in.
Yeah.
Apparently Data's tell is that he has no tell, and when he's bluffing, he deliberately tries to fake Picard out with minor, like, dilation of the pupils or something.
No, that's when he's not bluffing,
when he's
but
not
he
bluffing.
wants him to think that he's bluffing.
Yeah. And I love it because Data is like, now that you have, brought this to my attention, he's like, I don't know which subterfuge or whatever to employ.
Captain, I am confused about which deception to employ, I believe. Which sounds so much like something they would have wrote for Data back in the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. That sequence got this on such a good foot with me that I was like, they would have had to screw it up pretty bad for me to lose me. But yeah, it's a great opening.
As other people I've noted have noted, All Good Things ends with Picard sitting down to play poker. This picks up with him playing poker.
Yes. So it also links up to All Good Things also. Yeah. So if you want to skip the TNG movies, which I wouldn't blame you, even though I really like First Contact, it would still connect to that kind of.
Yeah.
Children of Mars really doesn't work as like a prelude. If you were doing like a chronological watch of Star Trek, it would kind of like...
You're like, what's that all about?
Yeah, it would like, instead of being a bridge, it would be like, it would knock out a bridge.
Yeah.
But it's like when like the bridge like comes apart in the middle and the two sides...
Well, there's going to be lower decks stuffed in there too, so it's that's after Nemesis, I believe. So.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Chronological viewings of Trek are going to become more complicated. It's just how it's going to be.
For sure. But the last thing I want to mention in this scene, unless one of y'all have something, is that Data has a hand of 5 Queen of Hearts.
Yeah.
I get the impression that might be foreshadowing something. It felt very deliberate.
Yeah, I mean, it did, but if nothing else, it's surreal because it's a hand you cannot draw in poker. But
yeah, there's only 1 Queen of Hearts in a deck.
Yeah, they deliberately pointed the camera at those cards for a reason. That's there for a purpose. I don't know. I've heard people say Borg Queen, but
right.
I don't know.
Because that's the only queen, I guess, other than Poe, the Zahan.
Thematically, based on just what we learned in the first episode, a pair of some sorts would make more sense. But
yes.
But yeah, we don't know what it means yet. But it probably will mean something.
And then we have Mars explode in the windows, and Picard's dream turns into a nightmare, and he wakes up on the vineyard with his pup number 1.
Yep, who's very attentive and is right there when Picard wakes up in a bit of a state.
Yeah, and it's like as if the dog is concerned, and he tells him, "I'm okay, boy." Or I think he says, "I'm all right, boy."
Yeah, he
says that again later in the episode. Mm-hmm. But we get to see a little bit of Picard's life on the vineyard, and
I mean, this is some of their first like some really nice exterior shots in Ready Room, the after show. They talk
hosted by Will Wheaton, which is available on Facebook, YouTube, and CBS All Access.
I enjoyed it and would recommend it. I thought they talked with the composer about the score, and they talked to the episode's director, and she mentioned that she wanted to kind of get away from Discovery's kind of cool blue colors and things like that to a sort of
which they totally overuse blue on that show. And I keep saying it looks so much better when they add color, like when you have the Enterprise sets.
Yeah, this Enterprise is costumes.
But they went like in a warmer direction.
Yeah, warmer, and I also I feel like there's sort of more earth tones and stuff. It's a vineyard palette. What's interesting? Do you think? What's y'all's sense of Picard when he's viewing his vineyard? He doesn't seem to It's not like he hates being there, but he doesn't seem to. I mean, it is what he's waking up to and getting away from the dreams he likes. Do you think he's enjoying it at all?
No, it's just what he's accepted, but he's kind of detached from it.
Accepted would maybe be the way to describe it.
I mean, they mentions later on, I thought I was going to die. How did he phrase it? He had
I'm not living, I'm waiting to die.
I'm waiting to die.
Yeah.
I think he's... As far as waiting to die,
He's
I
doing-
think that's that's a good fit. That's what he's okay with this as his waiting, what he does for when he's waiting to die.
Yeah, doing what's expected.
Yeah, as soon as he decides he doesn't want to wait to die, I think he's like, screw this. But
the vineyard does look beautiful, and they added a little bit more to it than what we saw in All Good Things or Family.
There's like mechanized little
irrigation.
Drums, yeah, watering and stuff.
He's got these robots running around taking care of it all just to piss off his brother. You know his dead brother. He's like, yeah!
Oh, yeah.
His dad and his brother are like flipping in their graves as he uses robots to take care of his vineyard.
It's an interesting point. He's still got a little bitterness built up.
Yeah, he's certainly not doing it the old way.
Also,
Father Picard would not approve.
We also see multiple people like walking around there.
A few, yes.
Tending the grapes.
Yeah, it's not...
But yeah, I like how the locations now, all these external shots of locations look really good.
They're gonna be gracing Wikipedia or Memory Alpha entries for forever now as like the key versions of a lot of these locations. The Daystrom Institute and some of the other the Federation archives or Starfleet archives. But yeah, we cut to Boston.
Yes, and this is where we're
a little more down to earth
to our new character Dahj. And she's with a Zahian boyfriend, so same species as Poe from Discovery.
Yep. And Dahj herself is a dark-haired young woman she's like postgraduate.
I wasn't...
She was accepted at the Daystrom Institute as a
fellow.
As a fellow.
But I don't know much about higher education. I'm more of a K through 12 type person. So what does a fellow mean?
I don't know.
Like, is she a student? Is she going to work there? Is it even is the Daystrom Institute a school, or is it just like a research
like a think
group?
tank kind of thing?
Apparently none of us know.
Yeah, none of us know.
So let's just move on.
Just nobody pay attention.
I did like that they had a call out to Discovery by the boyfriend, the choice of species for the boyfriend.
Yes.
Because I think that's the biggest Discovery call out.
And if you haven't watched Discovery, it doesn't matter. It's just like, oh, this guy's an alien. He's called a Zahian.
Yeah.
Yep.
You can look it up on Memory Alpha if
They
you care.
seem natural together. I like their sort of couples dialogue. Which, of course, rapidly falls apart when they are suddenly attacked by...
What we later learn are Romulans, but
Right.
they're masked and they're kept mysterious. And what I thought was really cool was we still don't know anything about them after watching the episode, but one of them is speaking an alien dialect that we can assume is Romulan, and then another one says, "No, speak English," because they don't want anyone to
know that they're Romulans.
Right. So I thought that was
I did think when they show the hilt of the knife sticking out of the boyfriend, I was like, that looks like those Romulan knives from Nemesis. I'm reading too much into this. Just calm down. You're seeing things everywhere. Just relax. And then I was right.
Did you also notice that Dahj and the boyfriend were drinking wine before the attack happens?
Yes.
Oh. So there's a wine connection there.
Yes.
Nice.
Oh, and we get to see the holographic interface on the replicator. It was kind of cool.
No. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's true. We see that also when... Or I guess we see Picard order some Earl Grey later on.
Yeah, but his is a little different, and I'll talk about that when we get to it. We also see the flower that Dahj will mention later in the episode, but it's Occidacei Dahj Oncidium, I believe is what she called it, which was
like the scientific name for it.
Yeah, the pink and yellow flower.
Yeah, it's like some sort of a hybrid, right?
Which kind of becomes kind of a
thematic relevance.
Yeah, for some that we'll touch on when we get to it, but
there's a big action scene though, because they say one of those guys murmurs she hasn't activated yet, which we don't know what that means.
Yeah,
and then she suddenly starts kicking the shit out of him.
And they're asking her things like, "How many? Where are you from? How many of you are there?"
Yeah.
So they're planning a lot of mysteries here that we will hopefully get big payoffs to.
And I think, do they actually say when she starts fighting him, she's activating?
Yes.
Yeah.
I think triggered was the word they used, but yes.
They said activate.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah, triggered's a loaded word.
Yeah, that's that would get memed endlessly on the internet.
But then we cut to our Picard opening credits sequence. It's not exactly what I prefer in Star Trek, but it makes sense for this show.
It's sort of like this tumbling fragmentation theme of different things, which ultimately it has a lot in common with the Discovery thing, with some of its imagery, with Discovery's opening. But ultimately, you see that these small pieces are tumbling into and form Picard's face, as if the pieces of him...
the end of it, when you
will
get the
coalesce.
reveal of...
Right.
But you also see, like, grapevines and Borg cube imagery. And
right, some stuff's very specifically
like
from this season.
DNA that might be replicating.
Yeah, I wonder if that's supposed to be like the cyborg synth, DNA and stuff.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot more
bodies.
A lot more stuff about synthetics and artificial intelligence.
I'm going to have to redo the credits every season. I'm pretty sure.
Probably so.
they added new stuff on Discovery for season 2.
I want them to randomly throw in. Is it Baylor? Well, what's the weird?
Oh, his little avatar from the Carbonite maneuver.
Yeah, I just want that for no reason to just show up.
You gotta put that in the end credits.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, the end credits is where it belongs. One thing I thought was interesting in Ready Room that they mentioned was that they talked to the composer, and the composer did mention that this being sort of a journey, and I recommend just watching that to see what his thoughts were as far as like what he was going through his mind and the small emotional journey he wants to take you on. Much of it having to do with Picard himself, but like specifically they mentioned that he used a flute.
There's a piccolo in there that I was hoping they would do that they would use a flute in the opening credits
to reflect the
flute from the Inner Light.
Flute from the Inner Light.
And much like how I feel like this version of Picard is a natural maturation of the Jean-Luc we used to know, and how this show is kind of a maturation of TNG, and again with like the wine theme, I feel that like this music is kind of a maturation from a lot of the old Jerry Goldsmith stuff. And they even use some of those cues in this episode.
Right.
There's one in particular that we're going to get to when I talk about the Easter eggs that I really, really love.
Yeah, you caught a super deep cut, but if nothing else, they a few times they evoke the classic bum 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 Next Generation theme from Goldsman.
Originally the motion picture.
But yeah, probably most iconic as, of course, is Next Generation. But
For
yeah,
sure.
and it's I think there's no Next Generation fan that can fail to find themselves stirred a little bit when they hear that. So it's a nice little subtle note in there.
And then coming back from the credits, we cut back to Picard on the vineyard, and we get to see number 1, his dog, running around there.
Yep. He's going to be like a visual scene stealer in every scene he's in because he's delightful.
Well, people love dogs.
Yeah. I do like that they were able to, just through the choice of dog, also add another layer of social commentary to it all. With the whole controversy about that breed of dog.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I mean, of course, Patrick Stewart's a particular advocate for them, and I've noticed some just in like my own friends circles and things like that, a lot of pit bull advocacy in like the last 10 years.
Yeah.
I think that people are really going out of their way to sort of rehabilitate the image. I myself have like bumped into at least 2 or 3 in the last 5-6 years, and they've all been sweethearts. It really does seem like a unjustly deserved reputation that they got as the killer dogs of the 1980s.
I mean, I grew up with a couple of pit bulls, and I've always liked that breed. But I kind of just enjoy bulldogs of any type in general. Yeah. I do have one friend who is a pretty big Trekkie. She's she frequently watches all the different shows. And she's like a total, like, stereotypical Austin white girl dog mom. Mm. And she has a pit bull. And I'm sure that, like, awesome. Like, having this character number 1 on the show here is going to be a big treat for her.
Yeah.
So that's cool.
For sure. I'm trying to think. Picard, did he ever talk about pets on the TV show?
No.
He seemed like a guy who probably was... Yeah,
he had a fish.
Who was a little bit kind of cold in what
Livingston.
In his appreciation of pets, and that sort of felt fitting for him. And I think that even though we know he's in somewhat of a melancholy place right now, he did for sure grow in his time on the show, and I think gained a certain warmth that he absolutely did not have in episode 1. And so although I know this is also like because Patrick Stewart wanted it. I think it's it ends up being a nice fit and a somewhat surprising fit for the character to have something so endearing and human as a dog. It feels it's a nice little surprise.
So number 1, he brings a dead bird to Picard, and Picard's telling him in French you can't bring that into the house. And I like that he's talking to the dog in French. Do
we ever see Picard talk in French in general?
Very little, very seldom.
Yeah.
Normally, if he's just saying like one particular word or phrase or something. So this, I would love to see it as a recurring thing that he frequently talks to the dog in French.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like the dog, they even refer to him as our little assassin because he has this dead bird. But I feel like that might be an analog for Dahj and how like this thing who's actually like real cute and sweet and friendly can actually be lethal.
For sure.
Do you think the dog is going to be a major player through the series, or
No.
is Picard going to go off adventuring and leave the dog behind?
So that is going to, they've said that's going to happen.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I actually thought it would be kind of cool if the pup came along, but it would probably be irresponsible if this is going to be a dangerous mission to be bringing.
And Patrick Stewart is like the total big dog lover that he is now. He said that he loved working with this actor dog whose name is De Niro,
Yeah.
IRL. But he would like to work with them in season 2, but he's not sure if like the dog would like the sets that they're on if they're not going to be on the vineyard. So he only wants to do that if the dog is going to enjoy it.
That's legit. Patrick Stewart's a great guy. He is the best of us.
I did like Ready Room's comments about what it was like to film with the dog.
Yes.
So then we meet 2 Romulan characters that are living on the vineyard with Picard.
Mm-hmm.
Zhaban and Laris.
I really liked them.
They're very likable.
Yeah.
They have, like in Batman, how Alfred always has, if you read the comics, and sometimes in the movies too, especially probably Michael Caine, his version, has a dry sense of humor and sort of is always taking little loving knocks at his, I feel it's weird to say master, employer.
That is weird how they kind of come off as like servants to Picard.
Yeah, if
I
nothing
think
else,
that's
they
a
are.
role they chose for themselves after what Picard did for them.
What's
That
interesting
was
is
what
it's-
I read into
It's
it.
not explained, but like we will rapidly learn, of course, of how important he is to Romulan refugees, and I really like both the characters. They're instantly likable. They seem very close to him. If any of them turned out to be like betrayers or something,
If
which
they're
I
like
don't think is going to happen, then I will be
sleeper
extremely
agents.
I don't think
sad.
that's
Well,
happening. Yeah.
we do get a glimpse of them in the Picard Countdown comic. So if you'd
Right.
like to know more, read that. Even though the 3rd issue is not out yet like it was supposed to be.
Yeah, that's a bit of an oops there.
Yeah, because comics run late all the time.
Yeah.
And if you're a comic reader, you just have
It
to
deals a
accept
lot
that.
with the events or like at least somewhat with the events of the evacuation, Mars, and things like that. So you'll get some little secret insights into that. If
Yes. But Picard is doing an interview for the FNN, the Federation News Network. And
I always like, as y'all know, I'm a fan of Generations, but I don't like the newscast per se or the way it's portrayed, which is like almost this kind of satirical spoofery of like all the microphones in Kirk's face and that. And I kind of don't like that there's just sort of a straight up, for lack of a better word, CNN space news thing. But if they're going to do it, I thought that this scene moved the story along nicely and was well handled and was not nearly so caricature-ish as Generations. Even if the reporter did do an ambush interview.
yeah, this
ultimately.
reporter is an asshole.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But
I thought it was an excellent way to do an info dump, though.
it is. The basic premise, she's supposed to be interviewing him about... what was it? Well, ostensibly, they're supposed to be there to talk about...
It's the
destruction
anniversary-
of the Romulus.
yeah, it's the anniversary of the supernova
Right.
that wiped out a bunch of planets in the Romulan Empire.
You might remember it from such movies as Star Trek 2009.
Yes.
It's the Nero's motivation.
Yes, and so here's another thing where they're taking something that was, and I think it's fair to say, a half-baked plot point from Star Trek 09.
Yeah.
Like, clearly the movie didn't want to focus on that story. They just needed a pissed-off bad guy who wanted revenge. Because most of the movies after from Nemesis onward have to do, like, their version of, like, a Khan clone.
Right.
Yeah.
So, they didn't really flesh that out. That wasn't Star Trek 09's agenda. That wasn't what they were trying to do. But here, like much like they're doing with Nemesis, they're taking something from Star Trek 09 and exploring that more and adding some depth to it.
Yeah.
On some level, I sort of wish they had, like... and I don't think they'll probably get around to it, actually, at this point. Explained a little bit about, like, the weird mechanics of how a star will threaten multiple star systems, like, in a instantaneous span of time.
Well, when Praxis blew up, there was a subspace shockwave. So if a star blows up, I guess
I think, and I get that it's not necessarily something that moves stories forward, and so
you put that on your list. That's one of the top 10 things you want.
It's one of the things Picard I wanted. Season 1. I think they're going to jump past it. They might touch on it more.
They did sort of imply that it was the star in the Romulus star system that was exploding.
They said the Romulan star.
Yeah.
But they didn't say the Romulus star.
Yeah,
so I think anything within the Romulan star empire can be referred to as a Romulan star. Like if someone had said a Federation... No, they call it the Romulan sun.
Yeah.
But like I feel like any star in the Federation could be referred to as a Federation sun.
So Picard, let's talk about Picard's role and what happened afterwards.
Because we get a lot of backstory here. This is where we learned that Picard had to talk the Federation into lending aid to the Romulans.
Which, after the events of Nemesis, makes a perfect sense.
Yeah, they promote him to Admiral and make him be in charge of this. He gets, they said, 10,000 warp ferries in order to evacuate 900 million Romulan citizens.
So we're talking multiple worlds and things like that.
Actually, like 900 million is not that many people.
It's not, but I think
we have a shitload more than that on Earth.
The comic, at least, though, did indicate that there were lots of colonies,
bunch of colony worlds.
Worlds.
One would presume the Romulans are also undertaking their own evacuation effort. It's just somebody crunched the numbers and said, we have nowhere near enough ships to get all of these people, and we need help.
Yeah.
And hey, you know how we nearly blew up your planet Earth a few years ago? Could you help us out now?
The reporter pokes at him a little bit by saying, like, oh, there were some who said that, that these were, that those 900 million were Romulan lives. And she definitely, there's a suggestion that they are lesser. And he says 900 million lives.
Yes.
Which is very quintessentially Picard.
He's the humanitarian.
It's one of, many lines he will have throughout the whole episode that are quintessentially Picard. And I'm so happy that they were able to have lines that made me think they get it throughout. Yeah. And that was one of the first big ones.
And this is also where we learned that the Mars attack that was carried out by the rogue synths we learned about in Children of Mars, that killed 92,143 people. And because of that, Starfleet called off the evacuation because I guess they thought that they had their hands full dealing with that. And
well, also they literally lost ships. I assume many ships. Well, they're core shipyards.
The appearance of a Discovery ship at the shipyard in Children of Mars makes a lot more sense if Starfleet is grabbing every ship out of their scrapyards that is still remotely serviceable and trying to fix it up to go pick up Romulans. So they're like, we got this ship that's 130 years old. Do you think it can make it fly in under 2 days? Yes. Well, then drag it out. Let's get it going.
Yeah.
So
and Picard makes the direct analogy to
Dunkirk.
Right.
Which I don't think is a fair comparison, because Dunkirk was a bunch of civilian ships evacuating exclusively military personnel.
Do we know if there were civilian ships? They didn't really get around to it in the interview, but Picard brings it up, and
I would assume that there would be civilians who would volunteer to join and help with this effort, and there's no reason why Starfleet or the Romulans would say no to that.
Right.
And this is where we also learn that in these recent decades after Picard leaves Starfleet because they disappointed him in not going through with this evacuation, but he has become a historian. So that ties into him, kind of living in the past. He's got his head focused on the past and the former, I don't want to say glory because he's not that vain, but the former meaningfulness that he used to have in his life.
But
he's lost that.
Right. And later on in the episode, near the end, he'll when he's kind of really kind of castigating himself for his life, for kind of sitting here wasting his time. He will perhaps, reflecting this sequence, say that he was writing about history that people wanted to forget, I think.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it's interesting. There's definitely this is a Picard who's a little who does not have time for those who forget history.
But I think that's probably how a lot of people feel when they get older. Is
for sure.
How do I make you understand? You weren't there. You didn't. You don't know the past.
Yeah.
You need to listen to this.
I did want to say one thing I loved about this was that yes, Picard's a little broken and has kind of lost his mojo, but he's still functional. He talks about doing lectures. He's writing books.
Right.
He says he's a big. They basically say he's a big proponent for helping the Romulans. Even today,
Yeah.
he's doing this interview to help the Romulan survivors.
He's an advocate for awareness.
Yeah, he did not shut down. He's not just making wine.
He didn't become pathetic.
Yeah.
He may be like not the person he could be. He could live up to. But yes, that's a good balance to find.
Yeah.
I think that's good on the writers. It's a good place for him to land.
It's so much easier to, we'll just have him be as broken as Luke on Octo Island or something. No, they don't. They say he wouldn't be that broken. And the nuance, the subtlety, that's something I really appreciated.
For sure.
I also want to say the interview was my favorite scene in this episode.
It was very well directed and edited.
And acted.
There's a sense of sort of rising tension and like it's almost like a fencing match between them where she's getting in these jabs and he doesn't want to rise to it, but eventually he lunges.
Oh yeah.
And he kind of exposes himself and the interview breaks down as he says what's really troubling him, which is that in the end when the Federation wanted to pull out of the relief effort, he felt that they were not the Federation he knew.
It was also the destroying or banning all the synths as well.
Right.
That was another sticking point for him as well.
Right.
But the way he said it wasn't. What was it? It wasn't Starfleet anymore.
Yeah.
That was like. That was the moment I was like, my God, this is... If anyone other than Patrick Stewart had said that line, I probably wouldn't buy it, but I completely buy it coming from Patrick Stewart.
This is going to get repurposed by anybody who doesn't like Discovery and all of this stuff. Yeah. It's like, it's not Starfleet anymore. I'm sure.
But if Picard says it must be true.
If Picard says it must be true.
Yes.
Well, then we get Picard and Dahj meet face to face after she sees his image on the news. And...
She literally wanders onto his vineyard. The dog comes up and barks at her. But is cute afterwards.
And the dog does not go nuts as if she's a Terminator with with
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah.
But Picard even has that line, and it's kind of cute when he says, if you were dangerous, number one would have let me know.
Right.
Yeah.
Basically doing the
Easter
same
eggs.
job that Riker used to do. If you were dangerous, Riker would have let me know.
Well, Worf thought everything was dangerous.
Yeah.
But Troy had
clearly paid attention to him.
Troy had the empathic abilities to... Someone would, lock on phasers, and then Troy would be like, I sense hostile intent. And thanks a lot, Captain Obvious.
Really, number one, the dog is clearly doing all the heavy lifting now.
Yes, he's the entire crew.
Yeah.
Now, she shows up and she's distraught, and one of the things I liked and that Patrick Stewart, I think, really brought to this, and will, in some of the subsequent scenes, really bring out, is this extreme sense of empathy. He instantly is like, are you okay? What can I do for you? You seem like he wants to, like he doesn't hug her, but he comes as close as a reserved Frenchman can. He hugs her with his words.
Yes.
And I really liked that about it. Because he's sort of like to borrow from Ghostbusters, we're ready to believe you.
Yes.
He's receptive to her.
Yeah.
And she had an instinctive drive to seek him out. She
literally had almost a little vision of a flash of his
glimpses
face.
of him.
And this is going to be one of the central driving mysteries. Why did that happen? Why is she drawn to him? He's clearly ready to believe her. On a very minor criticism, I did sort of feel like I kind of would have this is something they would have done on Next Generation. He would have said are you telepathic? Do you have any, empathic abilities? Are you a precog? I kind of would have liked to have known some of those things. But I realize that they don't necessarily always operate on that sort of level of crunch.
Well, they had also we didn't see the whole conversation. You can headcanon that those questions were asked. If you
I actually am glad they didn't waste time on that.
Maybe so. But they fast forward to him they're talking over tea and stuff like that.
Yeah, drinking the Earl Grey,
right?
Which
I noticed he requested decaf.
Yeah, because old people shouldn't drink much caffeine.
Yeah,
but
I'm going to use that as an opportunity to just quick mention. This show, this is a small but the nice thing, it acknowledges that he is older. And I like that. And then they do it in several ways throughout. I sort of feel like the two Romulan caretakers are almost sort of assisted living. They're clearly employees, but they somewhat function as assisted living helpers.
Yeah.
They're helping them get dressed.
Right.
They're helping him like, get like his tie on for the interview.
His dog, if nothing else, is there to support him. But he also, like in later scenes that are sort of more actiony scenes, he is not the action hero. He's winded,
unlike the TNG movies.
Yeah. He's
not Dune Buggy Man
in a tank top with a phaser rifle climbing around on railings and
what I love to do with Star Trek is take all these different things that different creatives have done over the years and see if you can weave them together and tie them together. And it's also really awesome when the creatives try to do that themselves. And
it functions as like as a working narrative of a life.
And even though a lot of this wasn't intended, but you can definitely view Picard as, he was the Stargazer captain, and he became the Enterprise captain, and he wanted to, be the captainy guy out there. But then when his family died in Generations, that kind of broke him, and then he met Kirk, and Kirk tells him, you need to stay in that chair,
and he wanted to sow some wild oats.
Yeah, and it kind of made him have he's probably a little old for a midlife crisis at that point.
But you would have a older midlife crisis in Star Trek's longer lived future.
And then he tried to be more youthful, and then he became the action hero in First Contact, Insurrection, and Nemesis. But then here, this is after he became an admiral, had all this stuff going on with the synths and the Romulans, and now he's
an older scholar.
He's finally become like the old man.
Yeah. What I do think is good is that although it's tinged with melancholy, at no point is he again pathetic or anything like that. And in fact,
it's not like Logan where he can't go to the bathroom without Hugh Jackman helping him.
Right. He has a strength of empathy which he leads with in all of these scenes, and I watch them and I say, yes, that's Picard. That is the strength I like to see in Picard, and it's a reminder that strength is not literally physical strength in Star Trek. It's so much more.
I do have one complaint here, though, with the conversation on the patio with the tea.
Yep.
And that is when Picard says, "Oh, that's an unusual necklace" or something like that. I'm like, well, that necklace is gonna be a MacGuffin for something.
For sure. I mean, if nothing else, by the end of the episode, they
already resolved that.
They resolve it. Yeah, I don't know if there will be anything more to say about it. Maybe it's got a hidden compartment, but they don't dangle it for too long.
It's weird that she obviously keeps that with her at all times. But then this is the one time she chose to leave it somewhere because she leaves it with them. But I guess if you thought these alien assassins were chasing you, you might make some unusual choices.
She's also clearly programmed in some way to trust Picard on a level that goes beyond rationality.
That's true. And the fact that you say programmed will come around in just a minute.
Yes.
So shall we... What else do we have going on here?
This is when we get the other dream with Data painting the painting.
Right.
We get the cool TNG era uniforms, which I never thought we would see on Patrick Stewart or Brent Spiner ever again.
Yeah.
Y'all okay with how Brent Spiner looks? There was endless memeing and jokes about him being a little puffy, not quite looking 100% like Data in 1993 or whatever.
I mean, that was before they did the CGI work. And it looks a lot better now than it did in the trailers. In fact, I'm glad that we got that stuff, because now we get to enjoy the digital improvement they did.
Yes.
The thing to me is he registered as Data. And I don't mind. I really don't worry about the details on that. I felt like Picard was talking to Data, and that's the important thing.
Well, it's a dream, too.
Yes.
So, you can look weird in dreams.
I had assumed what we were going to get were holodeck recreations for these little clips we'd seen in the trailers, but as dreams, the fact that Data's physical age is more towards Nemesis and less toward the uniform that he's wearing is fine. It's all... Picard also looks older. It's all kind of a mishmash.
The two scenes that they teased with Data, we have now watched within the first episode.
Yes.
Right.
So for all we know, we're not going to see Brent Spiner again.
I guess...
I think we will.
I think
there'll be more dreams. He seems to be having a lot of these dreams.
I don't think we're going to see a lot more of this. I think there's going to be maybe one or two more big payoff things maybe towards the end of the season.
Father, you and I messaged a little about this. I generally don't like random precognitive dreams, even if they sometimes tie into thematics of a story.
Yeah, it's weird if people are predicting the future in their dreams.
Right. Like sometimes it's neat because it's it just makes everything, the tapestry seem to weave together as a story.
Yeah.
But yeah, if Picard, unless, I would feel a little better if I found out that, you didn't know it, but like some flash of lights that Data did at some point actually imparted some information you didn't know you were going to need one day, and now you need, and it's activating or something like that. I'd probably be a little happier with that. I hope he doesn't get too precognitive.
I don't think that that's something that they're going to do much. Unless it's like something like the Borg or sending signals to him, or
that's what I wondered, because I was
Q is doing it or something like that.
He apparently starts dreaming about Data right before this descendant of Data comes into his life, and I thought that's convenient. And the only other time we've seen Picard having precog dreams was when the Borg were involved, and there do seem to be a Borg component here. Is there more to this, or are we just supposed to ignore that?
I mean, and that, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But he dreams about a painting that Data was doing, that Data asks him to complete. He says he can't, and then Data says, what does he say? I think you're mistaken.
Well, that dream made more sense, because by then he was like, where have I seen this woman before? Oh, in that painting I looked at, and so that's why I'm dreaming about the guy making the painting. Right. But the first Data dream seems to be unjustified in the context of the story.
Yeah. But this is what motivates them to go to the Starfleet Archive Museum in San Francisco.
Which is just, you store it for Starfleet personnel. You just, I got all this junk, I don't want it in my little chateau. So
I like the idea of the quantum archive.
Yeah.
Yep. And we get a digital assistant, I guess you'd call it.
The archive hologram.
Yeah, it's kind of fun. She's got a little bit of dry humor herself.
Yeah, a little bit of EMH in there. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
Again, using the continuity. They're borrowing an element from Star Trek Voyager.
They at no point do they literally mention the medical hologram, but yes, it obviously ties into that sort of personality, the same way you would expect droids in Star Wars to have a little bit of personality or snark or whatever. The holograms in Star Trek have a little personality too.
There's so many Easter eggs in the Picard's little personal storage unit in the quantum archive.
Oh yeah,
we'll go over all the things that I noticed, and a lot of the items that we saw in there, a lot of these Picard artifacts, like they were on display at the Picard Museum that they set up at San Diego Comic-Con last year, and also I got to see personally at Star Trek Las Vegas.
Right. That's pretty cool. You have essentially seen the stuff that is in Picard's archive at the Starfleet archives. That's pretty cool. But the key thing is, of course, there's a second version of a painting in there that he's got at home of a cloaked woman along a seashore, kind of the sort of stuff that Data did, sort of, I think, paint when he was doing
He painted in a few different styles.
Right. But as where she is, like in the one that Picard has at his home, she has her hood pulled up. You can see her clearly see her face, and in this one, which he did not remember or didn't remember completely, and it is Dahj. It is clearly her.
Yeah, and it's called Daughter.
Right.
Yes.
So this is kind of a connection to Data's attempt at offspring in the episode The Offspring,
Right.
when he actually made a daughter.
Yep.
Named Lal, but I'll touch more on that later, but this did seem like a little contrived to me, where he's like, oh, I have one painting that's kept a mystery on the face, but wait, don't I have another painting? And he goes to that, and he's like, oh, aha, that's her, and it seems like...
Yeah. I know that like Van Gogh and all these famous artists do variations on themes, but it was a little odd on, like, Data gave you two almost the same paintings. Like, it seems ready-made to be a clue.
As I was discussing with Father E earlier, I had a headcanon theory for that Data probably painted a ridiculous number of paintings over his life, like Bob Ross or something, and he had, like, a cargo bay full of them. Yeah. And when they went to Luda's room after Nemesis, there was, like... Everyone took a few paintings, and then there was 100 of them left over, and Picard's like, well, I don't want to throw out Data's I'll take the rest of the paintings.
Even Worf's got a painting somewhere.
Yeah, well, we've seen Worf get a painting, I think. But so that's why he has this painting that he doesn't know the name of and he only vaguely remembers, is because there's actually digitally stored there 100 Data paintings that he's looked at 20 years ago.
Like, Because I was wondering, like, these are mostly things that, like, Picard Day banners and things like that you would have some emotional resonance with him. And I'm like, why would he not know the name of a painting he has?
The painting is digitally stored. All the stuff he really cares about, he keeps as a physical item.
That's
he
true.
digitally stores the stuff that he's less attached to, like perhaps 100 Data paintings.
But anyway, so yes, he realized he's like, whoa, Data was trying to tell him something about this. So what do we discern? Data was trying to tell him something, or rather, another character who will be named shortly used that as the model.
Which is interesting. That how did that character get a hold of that painting?
Yeah,
or see a picture of it. But
that's true.
Maybe Data Facebooks all his paintings or something, or Instagrams.
But Picard does ask. He does ask the hologram. He's like, "Has anybody been in here?" No. So there's definitely a sense that people haven't gotten to it. Although,
yeah, that's true. They do sort of emphasize that nobody else has gotten to look.
They made a point about it. So, which suggests which would suggest Data's hand in the plot point we're going to be coming to in just a second.
Yes, as if Data had some type of intent here.
Maddox is carrying out Data's plan.
Well, we haven't gotten to Maddox yet.
Whoa!
Okay,
You're jumping ahead. But we have Dahj and another cool establishing shot of future Paris.
Yep.
Where she's talking to a hologram of her mother.
Yeah, she's like pulled her up like on her phone, basically.
Yeah, through like this holographic interface.
I did like the holographic interface on the thing. I also liked how it held perfectly still, even though her body and hands were shaking. It's like, nice, that's some good tech.
But then something kind of creepy happens. It's a little weird.
Where the mom is talking about information, like, oh, you should go back to Picard. And she's like, oh, well, I never told you I went to Picard. But she's like, oh no, you should go back to Picard.
She's like, of course you told me. You mentioned that.
So there's outside forces that have some type of influence on Dahj, and she is somehow able to hack into Starfleet security, find Picard in San Francisco, go to him, and Picard starting to put the pieces together that she might be Data, another attempt of Data to create a child.
Right.
And that... when she starts to freak out, like, oh my god, that's why all this weird stuff is happening to me. I'm a freak. I'm not real.
Right. To her, synthetics are the things that destroyed Mars and are a terrifying element of their times. She does not want to be associated with them, and she panics.
But he uses the flower analogy of, like, you have this beautiful memory of a father who created this flower for you that was something that was lovely and intentional. And I think if Data actually is your father, that's what he meant for you.
It's one of the key scenes for me as far as like Picard's empathy reaching out and the ties to Nemesis, where Picard, Data's sacrifice, which he explains to her, clearly meant so much to him that he is now like, he's her ride or die. He's like, I will help you through this, whatever it is. We're going to figure out who you are. We're going to figure out what's going on. And if you're connected to this, if you're the daughter of my friend who sacrificed his life for me, then I'm there for you every second. And I really appreciated that from Picard. I thought that was really cool.
But they clearly don't want the show about a senior citizen to get too boring. So right here, they decide to throw in another action sequence. The masked attackers have chased her down to San Francisco. She drags Jean-Luc Picard up all these flights of stairs on top of a building, and then proceeds to beat the ass out of these guys who are revealed to be Romulans.
It is what I would call an A-list movie level choreographed fight.
There is one moment I didn't like when she does like that really fake looking CGI jump.
No, that was dope.
It looked terrible.
No, you're terrible. Come on, for Star Trek, like this is actually in a way like. It's kind of how I wanted when Data would fight the Borg or something like that, and he would have to kind of go into the combat mode. I sort of always
I like the idea. I just thought the effect looked shit.
I think shit is an exaggeration. I thought it looked good.
That's why that they kept like the camera so like zoomed out, so like you didn't really see it.
It looked good. These are like
all the other effects are good. All the other effects are good. But that was one that I thought
90% of this fight is fucking dope.
Okay, but
I liked it.
No, I liked it. I just think that one effect looked bad.
She is moving.
It was distractingly bad.
Like she is one with the Force.
Well, like she was saying earlier, like lightning seeking ground.
Yeah.
Which when I saw that, I was like, damn, Dave is probably going to complain that sounded too writerly.
It did sound a little writerly. I won't lie.
I like the writerly dialogue.
My thought was, last time we had mysterious lightning, Nero showed up and
A lightning storm in space.
Yes.
But here's the thing, because in general the dialogue was good, and I liked, I'm okay with a poetic turn of phrase that might not necessarily perfectly fit a character. And so it was not like a big issue, but I did notice it.
I did think that whole sequence really was well executed on a sort of a deceptive level. I'm like, oh, okay, we've got old Picard who knows the ropes and knows how to deal with these things, and then there's the young mutant has shown up and found her Charles Xavier, and they're going to go on the run together from society, and he's going to help her out. Oh, look, and there's a big fight, and she's going to use her mutant power. Oh, she's dead.
Yeah.
Holy shit. Wow. Okay.
Unlike River, and it would be like if River, after her first big action sequence in Firefly, got killed.
Yeah. And I was like, well, I was worried this was a little too derivative of the X-Men movies, which I loved, so I was going to be okay with it, but I guess that's not going to be a problem.
But for the record, I, as a longtime comic reader, am not convinced of her death. There was one of the Romulans she was fighting while he's like on his way out, he spits like this acid, like as if he
bit a capsule to kill himself.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought he might have been bioengineered or something.
Because that was something that bothered me at first. This is the only time watching the episode where I was like, I really don't like what's happening right now. Because the first time I saw it, I was like, oh, like, this is weird that this Romulan spits acid blood, and then Picard gets knocked 50 feet, and then he, like, conveniently wakes up at home, and they don't really deal with, like, the hospital or anything, and then he kind of comes off as, like, so convinced that he has to go find out who killed Dahj, and it all seemed to be playing very fast and loose with everything, but after I've watched it a couple times, it doesn't bother me so much anymore.
See, basically my only complaint about the episode is, would there be police or security who would want to question Picard about why he was on top of a Starfleet building when a big explosion went off? Somebody would have some questions.
This felt like Discovery when they just rush past stuff.
Yeah. So they did do a throwaway explanation that his Romulan staff tells him, which is that the camera didn't catch anyone but him. So presumably they had some kind of cool Tal Shiar or some kind of high-tech stuff that, we've
seen them talk about that.
Right,
they
didn't appear on cameras. She didn't appear on camera.
Right, they mentioned that she probably has a cloaking device. So apparently, like, this is at a state where people can have, like, individual cloaking. Yeah. This might be why these abductors aren't just beaming her off the planet. They're coming down to capture her. And we get additions to their mystery in that not only do they not want anyone to see or hear that they're Romulan, but they also, like they beam up their dead. And, like, that one guy, like, kills himself instead of being captured.
Right. This is pretty dedicated, almost cultish level focus. And we should say, by the way, I don't know if we specifically said, but when that guy spits that venom as he's dying, it hits her and burns her, but it also hits the phaser rifle or disruptor rifle she's holding and clearly causes it to overload and explode.
Yeah. And it knocks this 90-year-old man like 50 feet across the roof. But they have future medical technology.
Yeah,
sure.
It also, it's easier to buy into it after we just saw him like about to have a heart attack running up those stairs.
Yeah.
So like the show is like telling you like, we haven't forgotten that he's old and frail. Like,
yeah. Do y'all think she's gone? Because there's reason, of course, that the actress will return. But do y'all think she's gone?
I mean, I don't. It might be. They just kill this character, and then it's her copy that we deal with.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking.
But I'm just thinking that if Data were to be caught in an explosion of a phaser rifle,
he was caught in an explosion of a fucking starship.
Did he survive it?
No.
Okay, well, a phaser rifle is less than a starship. My point is, if Data might have survived an explosion like that, which it was a big explosion, but it wasn't like it wasn't a nuke. It was just a big explosion that maybe like went 50 or 100 feet or something like that.
Picard didn't even need a refrigerator.
That's right. That was a deep cut there. I believe we may see her before the show is out return. That's just a theory.
This sets up the connection to the last scene with Picard where he says that, okay, so he has a mission now. He's tired of just like sitting on his ass, not like challenging himself, pushing himself, like how he describes it, how he hasn't like put his ass in gear like he used to, and now he's off to find out who was after her, who killed her. And he goes to the Daystrom Institute, which we've never seen before. The often mentioned Daystrom Institute, which we now know is in Okinawa.
Yep.
So I like when stuff is on Earth in Star Trek, but not everything in the United States. Like the capital being in Paris. I like Picard being a Frenchman. I like the Daystrom Institute being in Japan.
Right. Daystrom Institute, high-tech institute for Richard Daystrom, the designer of the ultimate computer.
And this is where we get introduced to another character who we know is going to be a regular, Dr. Agnes Girardi.
Mm-hmm. A.K.A. actress Alison Pill.
I thought she came off very well. I was like, I like this girl. I can put up with watching her for a while.
She's a kind of quirky, put-upon academic who has to only research synthetic life and AI and all that stuff in a world where that has been outlawed for, 10 years?
Yes, 14.
14 years. Right, and just kind of dreams of being able to do practical experiments, but it's against the law, so they do hypothetical research.
See, now I have a question here. What happened to Doc Holodeck and the other sapient holograms that had been created? Because if a robot walking around could grab a starship and blow up Mars, surely a robot that's built into the computer of a Starfleet starship could commandeer the starship's computer system and start blowing things up.
Yeah, we might find out more about the Voyager Doctor in Season 2, because it sounds like Robert Picardo is going to be involved in that.
Oh, is he? I had not heard that.
Or it may go the way of the explaining the Hobus supernova, which is to say they're like, this doesn't move the story forward.
I'm just wondering, are the EMHs still out there? Are there Moriarty type?
They have that archive index.
That's
but
true.
We don't know its limitations. Like we know that it was trying to learn humor. So
that doesn't necessarily mean that it has the depth that ultimately the EMH had.
Yes. Or we could have Picardo show up as Zimmerman, who, as an AI expert who programmed and created the EMHs, would also be an interesting, person.
That would be cool.
So, and you could explain why he got older easier. So
yeah, but with Dr. Girardi or Agnes, I don't know, are we on a first name basis with this character?
She's Dr. Girardi.
They are kind of writing her like the Geordi of this episode, where they give her like all the techno babble. You have to explain all like these weird scientific concepts that don't actually exist in reality, but you have to make all of this clear to the audience, and you have to memorize all these difficult lines.
Among other things, she catches Picard up on what their big goal was that they were like on the cusp of or whatever, which was synthetic humans that could, or like...
Well, they were 1,000 years away from that, she said.
Right.
But
she
that
says
was the end game.
Right, that their end game, their dream, I guess, was to create a synthetic that was so human that it was almost indistinguishable from... So kind of like a replicant in a little ways from Blade Runner.
Very Blade Runner or Cylon from Battlestar Galactica.
Only they can jump up 3 flights of stairs in a single bound.
It was a little weird to me that they thought that would be 1,000 years out, because I was like, God, Trek's future like tech is so generally high. I feel like that seems like within their parameters. But
the story needed them to make it sound like that would be like almost impossible if it existed today.
Right.
It sounded like it was just the soon positronic brain that they couldn't do.
Yeah, they said that they haven't been able to replicate data.
Yeah, they said they could do the body pretty easy, but
just giving it sentience would be the hard part.
Yeah, the brain,
which makes sense. Like you can create organic material artificially in Star Trek.
Yeah,
it would be difficult to copy data level intelligence, even though somehow the Voyager Doctor seems to also be on like the same level of...
But the Voyager Doctor also has a massive computer core that's probably like, the size of a couple of minivans or something.
Yeah, but you can put it... Well, okay, I was going to say you can put it into the mobile emitter, but that's future
tech, yes.
That's future tech.
Yeah, future tech. So,
there's future tech.
Yeah, yeah, again, it actually seems to more or less make sense.
But the big news that we get here was that a couple of things. One, Bruce Maddox from Measure of a Man,
the guy who wanted to make multiple Datas and
wanted to dissect them to do it and possibly kill them.
Yeah, sued to sort of rule that Data was just a machine so that he would have the rights to kind of treat him as a replicable machine and to research him and dissect him and all that stuff. Lost the case and just tottered off.
He walked away with a bit of respect for Data.
That's true. He did.
He's mentioned again in the episode Data's Day, where Data is corresponding with them, so they become
pen pals.
Pen pals.
That's a very cool and Star Trek-y thing, the notion that somebody who was in some ways, if not broken, then had some kind of a poor perspective, let's say, was able to grow. And we learned that he was the one who hired Alison Pill, right?
Yeah, he recruited her out of Starfleet, so I took that to mean she's ex-Starfleet.
Okay, yeah, that's
she
right. She
left Starfleet to go to the Daystrom Institute.
Yeah, that was my interpretation.
So, okay, we're on the same page with that.
But he disappeared after the synthetic...
The ban on synths.
Yeah, so he's been... that's one of the mysteries. I mean, like,
they're planting a seed there. That's a Chekhov's gun.
Yeah.
He's either going to come back or he's going to have... There's going to be some type of revelation with him.
His work will play a role or something, yeah.
I mean... Him as carrying out some mission for Data, some plan Data had that
I love that.
Data is certainly one way to go. For what it's worth, on Facebook, Melissa Snodgrass,
TNG writer, producer,
who wrote Measure of a Man, she claims on Facebook that they have yet to contact her about negotiating royalties for that character.
Oh,
now, she could be lying to keep the surprise going.
Yeah, it might have been part of the conditions. Was like, okay, we're going to pay you these royalties, but you have to sign this non-disclosure.
Yeah. And
it's kind of unfortunate if it comes to the point where she has to like say things that kind of, in a way, malign the present writers or the producers and stuff by saying that, they're not... contacting her about these things. But hopefully that will all work out okay, because I think we would all be interested in seeing his return.
I would certainly like to see his return.
It's only one of the best episodes of TNG. It's like maybe the most vital Data episode ever.
It's certainly the best season 2 or season 1 episode. Like out of that first 46 episodes, it is easily the best.
Yes.
There's nothing close to that until seasons 3 and 4.
She also, while talking to Picard, did he bring the necklace?
Yes, he shows her the necklace, which the simple 2 circles that are touching, she says, like, oh my god, that is the symbol for neural fractal cloning.
And not a Venn diagram.
Which was Bruce Maddox's theory of it would be possible to take one single neuron from Data's positronic neural net
and reconstitute everything.
Yes,
but they could rebuild him,
and it would work by creating twins. So it made me think of maybe like a mitosis type thing of how cells divide. But they had
what is with the twins thing, like Data and lore and all that stuff. It's a big thing in robotics.
Yeah, I almost wonder if they'll tie that in, that they had, in order to make lore, they had to make Data or something.
Yeah,
that there's an inherent twinning thing you have to do with androids.
It's like in Pacific Rim.
Androids.
In Pacific Rim, how you need 2 dudes to drive a Jaeger.
Yeah.
It's just how it works.
Yes.
But we also get the reveal of B4 in a drawer.
Right?
Yeah.
We didn't know if that was lore. We didn't know if it was lore in a drawer or B4 in a drawer, but now we know that that's B4. And I love here that they said, like, no, Data's dead. He tried to copy his neural net into B4, and it all just kind of disintegrated.
Yeah.
Well, they have to say that because if they could just pull a single neuron out of that android, then the whole plot would go in a different direction. So they have to make very clear that was a complete no-go.
A distinct lesser version of Data.
Yeah.
Brent Spiner also said that part of coming back to play Data was he didn't want to undo the death.
Yeah.
Now,
enough.
I think it's possible that we might find out that Maddox was working on something to like revive Data, and we might even see like Data come back as like a flesh and blood human.
You think maybe different actor if they did that?
No, I think that there might be Brent Spiner is kind of misleading us or something, and we actually get...
Well, technically Data will always still have died even if he is reconstituted.
well, what if they did something where Data could be like a real flesh and blood human, like he always wanted, and it's actually like Brent Spiner playing him, and it's okay if Brent Spiner looks older because he's like a real person. I think that would be kind of cool, but I love the idea that it's not...
I do kind of like that. It would allow him to emote and do a lot of those things that he still found many episodes to do that in, but But it would be kind of cool to see Data get his dream, I have to admit.
And I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled that they're not going to do what the 2009 Countdown comic did and just be like, oh yeah, B4 turns into Data.
Yeah,
Right.
I thought that was very...
That's such like a cheap comic booky in a bad way type of like
It was what Nemesis...
omitting a death.
It was kind of what Nemesis had set up as the out. But yeah, it was just kind of the most unimaginative follow-through you could get.
The other Star franchise recently just extremely disappointed me with how they just completely undid a major death of the original trilogy with no explanation. And it really cheapened that. And I don't want to see that in my Star Trek either.
Yeah, I debated with you, but I like that one all right.
Yeah, we're not gonna talk about that.
You brought it up.
The other Star franchise is fucking shit 50% of the time.
I'm aware of your pronouncement on it. So what conclusion does he come to with Dr. What's her name?
Girardi, Agnes Girardi.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they know that there's a twin out there.
Right. And Picard resolves, he's like, I need to find that because, and is his primary motivation to find out what the deal was with Dahj, but also because it holds the promise of potentially bringing Data back?
Well,
or at least saving Data's daughter or offspring.
He
returning
has
the
loyalty.
favor.
He has loyalty to Data's family.
Yes.
Right. I don't know if we'll get a return of Data. I just wanted to throw that possibility out there.
They do when the Romulan goon squad shows up the first time. They're saying how many of there are you, and it does seem to be pretty common knowledge that this process involves twins. So
oh my god! I just thought of something.
Are there a whole bunch of hers?
What if there are 5? That's why there's the 5 queens. Because didn't they say in TNG that Noonien Singh created 5 different positronic brains? And so that's why there's Lore and B4 and Data, and you would think there's like 2 other Datas out there.
Right.
Yeah.
Or Data-like androids.
Yeah.
Or earlier prototypes.
Did they actually drop the number 5 in there somewhere?
I don't remember what the number was, but I know there was a number.
What episode do you think?
I don't recall.
It would have been the first, I think it was the, I want to say it was the first lore episode.
Data lore and
Data
season
lore,
1.
yes. Data. I think that's
all right,
the one where they mentioned.
People get on this. We doubtless will as well.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see the sister to Dahj, who her name is Soji.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll see her die in the next episode, and then we'll move on to the next one after that.
You think any chance we're going to see Lore? I mean, we know he's sitting in a closet somewhere.
I think they should just leave him alone. Like, he was disassembled. That's the end of him. They just death penalty him, which seems kind of weird for Star Trek, but
it's a little maybe too kind of melodrama-y and too kind of bringing the past back too much. I almost think, but.
What if Maddox put Lore together for an experiment and Lore got loose and he's the one behind all the crazy?
What if to make the sense, Maddox had to put Lore back together and he was trying to copy that neural net? And that's why the sets ended up going rogue, because they're kind of like descendants of Lore.
And he disappeared afterwards because he was racked with guilt.
Yeah, he's like, I just murdered all those people on Mars.
It's a little, like I say, like I actually feel like it's almost a little too obvious to have Lore at the, responsible for that. But I can see ways it could be done.
Yeah.
But let's say I'm trying to think, and let's talk about the final scene, and then
we see the Romulan reclamation site and a Romulan ship flying up to it. It's later revealed to be a Borg cube. Yep. This is where we meet our character Narek, played by Harry Treadaway.
I swear I've heard a Romulan with that name before somewhere else. A book, a comic, a game.
In Face of the Enemy, there's a Romulan with a similar name, but I don't think it's the exact same. I think it's like Novik or something, but it begins with an N, ends with a K. I think.
Okay, all right.
It is similar, but we meet Dahj's sister, I guess, whose name is Soji.
Mm-hmm. Soji Asha.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
We don't know what's going on here. Yeah. It's some type of scientific research from something that the actor Harry Treadaway has mentioned. He said that his character is a Romulan of a wealthy family, and he's conducting scientific research on the Borg cube.
Right, we see these sort
of
Romulan
reclamation center.
Right, what they are.
What are they? What's the reclamation?
Yeah,
right. We don't know. There's also it seemed like the Borg cube that this thing is It's surrounded by like hundreds of like tiny like satellite type things or some kind of drones.
Well, I
or
just
something.
assumed that was just like Romulan technology, like keeping it stationary or something.
In the brief flashes of the rest of the season, I saw what looked like those satellites moving and doing something. Like they were beaming, some connective light to it, or something was triggering them. I feel like there is it is doing something. So they have this conversation. He kind of starts to talk about his past and says, "You're probably not interested in that." She said, just kind of like, "Try me. I am interested."
She seems like she might be like a psychiatrist or something, because he says that you've been fixing broken people all day. This is probably the last thing you want to talk about when you get off work, is me and how I just lost my brother recently. I think he said a year ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, no, let's talk about it.
She certainly seemed interested enough in him to want to talk about it.
Yeah,
so I didn't feel like she was being guilted into it. Like, let's...
She's aware that she has a twin, so I don't know if like Dahj knew that she had a twin, but maybe they grew up together in Seattle, or they have memories of growing up together in Seattle. It seems really hard for me to imagine Dahj knew about the twin, because... She never mentioned it.
Yeah, if you were suddenly having these weird visions, doubting your own identity, being chased by guys with guns, and you finally take the risk to call mom, wouldn't you say... Is my sister okay? Right. Wouldn't that be like just about the first thing out of your mouth?
Yeah, it is. That is one of the bigger mysteries that I suspect may get answered soon.
Well, yeah, if she doesn't know she has a sister, then that works fine.
But this one does know.
Yeah, which makes
if this one
weird.
does know, and she says, "My dad gave both of us a necklace like this."
Yeah, so.
But if these are all false memories, then who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's definitely a lot of mysteries. I think we're all three eager to see them played out.
Yeah.
And we'll have to wait till next week before we learn any more.
It's good, scrumptious mysteries that feel like they feel tasty. So, yeah.
But, well, go ahead, Brian.
Oh, I was just going to say, I also like that it was a thoughtful science fiction episode. It was not just run and gun and explosions and big character drama moments, but there was also, intelligence to this, I like in Star Trek.
And the
thinking person science fiction.
Fractal neural cloning gobbledygook. It's all like totally like made up science. I don't think has any basis in reality at all. It's totally created almost as fantasy to service the story they want to tell. Yeah. But it works so much better as like Star Trek scientific talk than what they did on Discovery with like time crystals and stuff like that.
Sometimes scientists give things silly names, or the nickname, the silly stick nickname is what sticks. That happens in real life. But
yeah, this had the feel like it didn't go, I would say, into technobabble sort of the way TNG might, but it definitely felt more like it had that more purposeful little bit of technobabble than Discovery even really attempts for the most part.
Yeah.
Well, we are way over time, so I do want to wrap up before we go into the Easter eggs. But just like if you have any final thoughts, what's one final thought?
Well, Brian, you mentioned the sci-fi thing, and here's the thing: is to me it felt like a good version of like the TNG movies, like a lot of the best of what I like about them. I don't know if it like really wrestled or brought up a moral conundrum or a technical or like some issue of that technology brings about. I feel like the question of like robotics and synthetics is sort of an overplayed thing in a lot of sci-fi right now. Actually, there's lots of good things to describe it out there from Westworld.
And it's relevant with the artificial intelligence on the horizon.
But I don't know if they're gonna I don't know if they really have an interest in discussing that, or if it's something that just moves forward a suspense plot.
I think it's mostly a social allegory and symbolic structure, but that's what's the meat and potatoes of Star Trek.
If nothing else, yes, Picard is speaking of them as sort of a marginalized group that he did not like becoming further marginalized and completely expunged.
And did not approve of the some synths are bad, therefore all synths are bad philosophy that the Federation and Starfleet clearly is taking.
Right, and for sure you can read a lot into that metaphor.
Yes.
If I were to have a complaint, it'd be that I would maybe like them to lean a little bit more into those kind of questions as the series moves along. But as a drama, I think it's fantastic. I think it was a great first episode, and I liked all the characters. And I don't think there was any fat on it really. It was sometimes moved quietly, but I don't think it was being that it was bloated or indulgent or anything like that. So I thought it was in some ways about as good a first episode as you could get, and better than I expected.
Yeah, it takes time to breathe.
Yeah,
it takes
like
time
a good wine.
Yeah, well, I suppose yes.
All the wine metaphors,
which Discovery generally does not take time to breathe.
Correct.
It's all about go, 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 go.
Yep.
This was like, let's set a tone. Let's build an atmosphere.
Mm-hmm.
Let's prattle on about tells with poker.
Yeah, and Picard's that melancholy that I mentioned got to breathe and kind of unveil itself.
It still would move a little too quickly, with like that one instance where we go from like the explosion to the couch to Okinawa all like real quickly. But yeah, overall, like I do like the structure and pacing and writing here better. And I don't want to beat up Discovery. It gets beat up on a lot, and all three of us like Discovery.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wish that they had done a little better job sticking the landing in season 2, and I'm still a little bitter about that. But overall, I enjoyed the first 2 seasons of Star Trek Discovery. I love this so much more after one episode.
Yeah, I kind of don't want to lean into that too hard because I don't want to knock Discovery because Discovery has a lot going for it. But it did feel more instantly Star Trek with me, and Patrick Stewart, he's just such a lovely person to watch.
Yeah, best actor on TV right now, I would say.
This certainly grabbed my attention and emotionally swept me away much faster than Discovery did. It's also got all this nostalgia fan service going on that Discovery, sometimes by choice, sometimes by setting, did not use. And I mean, Discovery's taking the harder path. It's like, oh, look, brilliant actor that you love. Look, brilliant actor that you love. Oh, look, reference to Bruce Maddox. Oh, look at all the fun things. It was easier to do a good Picard series than it is to do a good Discovery, I think. Sure. And I have to respect Discovery for taking the harder road. And I'm very excited to see what Discovery does for season 3. But that said, I loved the hell out of this first episode of Picard. I really, really fell hard for all that fan service.
So, I'm just going to run through the Easter eggs that I picked up on, and if I skipped anything that you noticed, by all means, let us know. And this is actually a long list, because there were a lot in here.
Well, let's hit it.
Fan service.
Some of these things we already mentioned, so I'm not going to bring up again. But a couple little visual things. When we did see that exterior shot of the greater Boston area, there's in the lighting on there, we can see a Ferengi Alliance symbol. The logo for the baseball team, the London Kings, so maybe baseball's made a return again, even though any from Boston would tell you that they would always be Red Sox fans forever, I think. Knowing a couple of Bostonians in life.
That's how my wife is. So.
There is also a sign for what kind of looks like it says Cassidy Yates. And it looks not dissimilar from the Cassidy Yates Freights logo from Deep Space Nine.
Oh, is that so maybe you'll get your DS9 plug? At least you have that technology.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that technically counts as the DS9 reference I wanted. Moving past that, we see some very Okudagram-looking LCARs, both on Picard's replicator controls and also again in the Starfleet archives.
Yep.
Which we didn't get anything close to that in Discovery, so I was super happy to see that. I also like that Picard's replicator has what in this time period would probably be old school LCARs. Whereas,
by the way, I'm sure most people know what that is, but LCARs is like the heads-up display or whatever on all their.
Well, it's not a heads-up display.
Oh, it's the icon, the visual icon,
the computer display.
Yeah,
the GUI, the graphical user interface.
Yeah.
That you click on through the touchpad, touchscreen. Yeah. But I like that Picard has that on his replicator, and Dahj has what probably would be the more modern, high-tech, holographic. The menu actually sticks out to you in 3 dimensions.
Picard's got the old man version.
Yeah.
Touch screen. How quaint.
In the news footage montage, we get to see Patrick Stewart rocking some of the older uniforms, like the black and gray Starfleet uniform and the white dress uniform. But we also get a shot from, I believe it's from the episode Sins of the Father in Next Generation Season 3 of him and Worf. And we get to see normal-looking Klingons. Something else on my list of things I wanted to see.
Yeah, they did Photoshop Worf to look like a
Discovery
Klingon.
Yeah.
So now if they ever show Worf, he has to look like that.
Yeah. Well, Worf is in the series now, just as a photo, but he's there.
And all the things that are in the Starfleet archive, there is a model of the Stargazer, Picard's first ship that he commanded. There's a model of the Enterprise E. There's a model of the Enterprise E Captain Yacht. There's a painting of the Enterprise D. We see a Klingon Batleth. We see a Klingon Ducktog. That's the little three-blade knife. There is a book, which I believe is the complete work of William Shakespeare.
He had a bound collection of books that was definitely one of those Shakespearean collections.
Not the photo album. I guess he probably took that to the chateau.
Yeah, you think you'd keep that at home.
Yeah.
There's the Picard Day banner that the children on the Enterprise D made him. And the artifact from the chase, the Kurlan Nasakos, or however you say it, Naskos.
What was that?
Kurlan
I want to
Naskos?
say Naskos.
That's that priceless artifact that he gets in the chase from his old archaeologist buddy.
Oh, yeah.
And then in Star Trek Generations, when him and Riker are cleaning out the ship in the very last scene, he kind of just like throws it to the side. And I'm like, that's really dumb because they made such a big deal of that being like a priceless artifact. Yeah. But now we can just assume that was a replica that he threw to the side.
Yeah.
And the real thing was...
Instead of it just being a campy movie bit.
Yes.
Okay, sure.
And that's all the stuff I noticed in the archive. But then the other connection I wanted to point out was to Law from The Offspring, Data's first attempt at a child.
For sure.
I'm
going to want to revisit that episode, among others.
Yeah, and it's a good one. It makes me cry. But the name Law is Hindi for beloved, I believe, or beloved. And I to me, like Dahj sounded very Indian or Hindi. Mm-hmm. So I looked up what that name means in Hindi, and it actually means sun, as an S-U-N.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, what if her twin sister Soji, what if that means like moon or something? I looked that up and that doesn't mean anything in Hindi.
Yeah, that was a nice idea.
But
this case has hit a dead end.
Yeah, I don't know if that was intentional. But also this one might be a stretch, but Romulans wearing helmets. That's kind of a connection to TOS Romulans.
The old school ones, yeah.
They just added like the glass face mask to hide their identities.
The idea that the Romulans are preventing anyone from finding out that they're Romulans goes back to the original Romulan War, where they kept themselves
secret. All about secrecy.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about that.
Me neither, but that's a good one. On the Borg cube, the Romulan reclamation site, we see regeneration alcoves in the background. Oh. Kind of a visual clue that it was a Borg ship before we get the big pan-out reveal of it being a Borg ship. And then the final Easter egg, which was my personal favorite, and this is, to me, like one of the coolest things that they've done in Star Trek in years.
But it's a pretty deep cut.
I didn't notice it the first time I was watching, but when Narek's ship is flying into the Borg cube, I do remember seeing that and being like, oh yeah, like I'm really into this. I like the music. I like the special effects.
It's kind of dramatic music.
Yeah. Then when I rewatched it a second time, I started like humming this music. And it dawned on me like, I've heard this before. And it's a rearrangement of the original cues used for the Romulans in Balance of Terror. It was reused throughout the original series, but I think it first appeared in Balance of Terror. And I love like that big dramatic Romulan music. I
am surprised they didn't go back to the classic TNG Romulan theme that was also very, very strongly associated with the Romulans for the first several Romulan stories by Ron Jones. They had a very...
But this is better.
I mean, I broadly feel all the music in TOS is better by far than TNG.
Oh no, you're not listening to the right TNG music. Ron Jones is amazing. The rest of it's crap.
What seasons in general?
He did 1, 2, and 3, and then they told him he was too good and fired him.
That was the point where you actually can hear the music.
They told him he was the music was distracting.
Yeah.
But even in Face of the Enemy, they have good music with the Romulans, I thought.
Okay.
Fathery, I don't consider this an Easter egg, but I did notice that among the news crew was a Trill and a Tellarite. Because I saw the tusks.
I wasn't sure if he was a Tellarite.
I actually happened to be looking at IMDb later, and I saw somebody was literally credited as Tellarite, so it had to be him.
Yeah, that sucks because I don't really like that Tellarite design that much.
I would always prefer piggish over scary spike faces. But
Like that was even worse than the Tellarites we saw in Discovery.
it kind of was. But it is what it is. It was
That's
a Tellarite.
by all means the ugliest Tellarite I've ever seen.
There's some stiff competition in that category.
But like I said, if you saw anything that I didn't notice, let me know. And if you are checking us out on YouTube, be sure to give us a subscribe and comment. Share your thoughts about this episode, and we will point them out next week when we discuss Star Trek Picard Episode 2, Maps and Legends.
I feel like people will have thoughts on this.
Yeah, for sure. And you can also comment on our Facebook page or holler at me on Twitter and let me know there, and we will share some of y'all's thoughts next week. And I think that's going to be it. We are now in the era of Star Trek Picard.
Yeah, super
So-
excitement to commence.
The next 9 weeks are going to be a lot of fun, and please join us and be part of this discussion with us. And until next week, live long and prosper, y'all.
Listen to the Tex-Trek podcast through Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, or at tex-trek.com. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/tex-trek, and follow Fathery on Twitter at TXTrek. Please support us by liking our videos and subscribing to our channel on YouTube. Thank you and take care.